Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our seventh democracy talk. My name is Vanina Morrison. I know last week we had Diana Trevino hosting from UCAN. This week I'll be hosting. I'm part of the FOGS team here at Democrats, and I'm the online community organizer for the Agora. And, without further ado, I want to introduce our special guest for today. And our guest is Paulina Sekula, and she is from Jagiellonian University. She's a professor there, and she will be talking about gender inequalities and how that is a challenge for an inclusive democracy. So I will go ahead and turn over to Paulina. She can introduce herself and then start her presentation. Thank you, Paulina, and welcome.
Thank you, Vanina, very much. Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm very pleased to be with you today. Indeed, I'm part of the Jagiellonian University team of the Democrat Project, and I'm a sociologist working at the Institute of Sociology and also at the chair of the epidemiology and preventive medicine at the medical college in the Jagiellonian University. But I will be talking today as a representative of the Institute of Sociology, where not only in the Democrat Project, but also for a couple of years taking part in projects that deal with gender equality in mainly in research institutions, but also lately in the energy transition. I will also speak a little bit about this. So, without further ado, let me share my presentation. Yes. Do you see the full screen or the presenter mode? Because I'm a bit confused again.
No worries, it's on presenter mode right now. I believe if you...
I need to change again.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hidden here. Okay, I have to get there. How about now?
Now it's perfect. Thanks.
Okay, that's great. So it changed again. Okay, so the topic of gender inequalities is very broad. So for today's talk, I just choose a few threads I would like to share with you. And I would like to very briefly discuss the interrelations between democracy and gender equality and gender inequalities also. Then move to gender in politics, because women's participation in political decision making is an indicator which very often is used as an element assessed when the level of democracy is assessed. So within the complex democracy indices, sometimes gender in politics is taken into consideration. Then I will move to the concept of multidimensionality of gender equality. So we will move beyond the political sphere to other spheres of social life. Then very briefly, I will talk about current state of counteracting gender inequality or gender inequalities. And then, as I signaled before, I will for a moment talk about one case study or one area of inequalities and interventions, which is gender equality in energy transition. Okay, so gender equality excuse me, and gender equality is a crucial feature of democratic societies, and this has been recognized by both international organizations and also in individual countries, which have provisions in their constitutions and special legislations concerning gender equality. I included here two citations. The first comes from the Beijing Declaration and Platform of Action adopted at the World Conference of Women organized by the United Nations in 1995. The second one, it comes from the current EU gender equality strategy. Both documents acknowledge very strict interrelation between well-functioning democracy and gender equality in a variety of aspects of social and political life. However, as I mentioned before, very often this gender equality is reduced to one indicator, which is participation in political life. So for that reason, now I would like to speak a little bit about this. Today there are no countries that formally discriminate between men and women regarding the right to vote, and the majority of countries grant women the right to run election. But although the proportions of women in decision-making positions systematically rises, women are still heavily underrepresented in those positions. Very few women make it to their country's highest political office, to the chief executive, either the post of the head of the government or the head of the state. In 2023, there was around 10 countries were run by women. As for legislative power, globally, women currently constitute around 25% of the members of national parliaments. As you can see in the table, there are discrepancies, with Nordic countries having the highest levels of women's participation, in fact, reaching gender balance as far as this indicator is concerned. And also there is a dozen of countries which have balanced gender representation in ministerial positions. So while this descriptive, numerical representation of women in politics is slowly rising, there is still a big concern, or there are still disputes whether how this descriptive representation translates into what we call substantive representation. It refers to the impact of women in decision-making positions on policy formulation and implementation. So the substantive representation asks whether issues raised by women are given the priority in the country or in the legislative process. And evidence is mixed so far, and there is still a strong voice that both politics and policies are biased, gender biased, towards on or in favor of men. But as we know, besides the political arena, there are other aspects that are important from the gender equality point of view, and those aspects also determine access to politics. So now I would like to move to this multi-dimensional model of gender equality and share with you one measure which is used to assess the gender equality throughout a few different domains. Yes, and yeah, this is one of the examples of such complex measures of gender equality. The one is Gender Equality Index, calculated each year by the European Institute for Gender Equality. And it includes 6 different core domains: work, money, knowledge, time, and also power and health. They are on next slide. I will be talking about them in a minute. And the core domains form the basis of the calculations of the scores between 1 and 100, both for the European Union. Here you can see scores for the European Union and for individual member states. And a score of 100 would mean that the country had reached full equality between women and men. I don't have to probably mention that EU average masks considerable variations between member states. We don't have time to discuss them, but I encourage you to explore the index to look for the differences between different countries or regions within European Union. So going through domains, domain by domain, if we look at the work domain, we still see gender inequalities in the workforce, and especially gender segregation in the labor market. It has been demonstrated that women continue to occupy jobs in sectors with lower remunerations level, fewer career prospects, and fewer options for upskilling. As far as money is concerned, there are still large gender disparities in gross monthly earnings. As for the level of European Union, women's earnings account to less than 70% of men's earning. Going to knowledge, on one side, in most countries, women constitute the majority of students and graduates in tertiary education, but at the same time, there is gender segregation, which is considerable, with overrepresentation of women in education, health and welfare, and also humanities and arts, and underrepresentation of them in so-called STEM disciplines. As far as time is concerned, there is still an enduring gender gap in time devoted to housework and also gender inequalities in social activities. I'm struggling with my mouse. Okay. The domain of power refers here not only to political representation, but also, as you can see, leadership positions in economic and social life, including research funding organizations or publicly owned broadcasting organizations. And similarly, as on the level of political power, there are big discrepancies, gender discrepancies. And finally, health. Well, the domain of health scores the best, the highest, so it tops the gender equality index, at least for the last 2023. There is also an aim within the European Institute for Gender Equality to capture additionally gender-based violence. However, the authors signal that data continues to be scarce and lacks comparability within the European Union. So we still have to wait for comparable data. This is future for this index. And also what is important is that the gender equality index allows for an intersectional analysis. So for capturing how gender is manifested when combined with other characteristics such as age, disability, socioeconomic background, family situation, and so on and so forth. So it is also possible to analyze the complexity of gender inequalities with intersectional lens. Okay, so as we can see, the gender inequalities and gender discrepancies remain in various domains quite considerable. So the efforts continues to counteract gender inequalities. I also already signaled at the beginning the UN agenda for sustainable development, with one of the sustainable development goals referring directly to gender equality, remains the, we can say, world's roadmap for tackling inequalities, but also other international organizations and national executives adopt some legislation and policies aiming at fostering gender equality. Also, on various levels, both international, regional, national, and organizational, there are different measures and initiatives implemented to tackle gender inequalities in their different layers. And those measures or initiatives include gender quotas, for example, gender quotas on electoral lists, gender mainstreaming, which very briefly speaking refers to integrating a gender perspective to the content of the different policies, and also addressing the issue of representation of women and men in the given policy area. Then gender budgeting, which is incorporating a gender perspective at all levels of the budgetary process within organizations or on national level or European level. And gender equality plans, so strategic frameworks or documents which aim at structural and cultural change within an organization. And here we can mention that there is an intensification of adopting gender equality plans in the European research area within the European Union. After like 2 years ago, European Union introduced a JEP eligibility criterion for Horizon Europe. It means that all public bodies, research organizations, and higher education institutions from member states and also from associated countries, if want to apply for funding from Horizon Europe program, have to have a gender equality plan. And finally, going to one of the area or case study, gender equality in energy transition, there is growing consensus that both climate change and the energy transition in itself, so the transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy sources, gives unequal gender effects and also aggravates pre-existing gender inequalities. So there is much evidence that women are underrepresented in the energy workforce, both in the conventional and renewable energy sectors, in research concerning energy, and in energy-related decision-making. This means that women have less of a voice in shaping the green transition, which has impact on our lives. Due to pre-existing gender gaps in the labor market, women are also less likely than men to be able to take advantage of the newly emerging jobs, because there is a big potential in this new renewable energy sector with new jobs to be taken. And also, women are particularly affected by energy poverty, as they tend to have lower incomes due to both the gender gap we were talking before and the gender pension gap, which also in many countries is quite huge. And finally, as primary home caretakers in most cultures or in many cultures, women and also girls are most impacted by household air pollution caused by cooking with inefficient and harmful fuels. Only this evidence shows that without well-planned interventions, these low-carbon energy systems that are emerging may not be any fairer, any more inclusive, or any more just than the conventional systems that they are supposed to displace. And one of the responses to this problem is this Horizon Europe project, Genesis, which aims at better understanding of gendered power relations and gender inequalities in energy transition, and also at demonstrating how to advance more women to participate in and influence the processes and outcomes of energy transition, how to integrate gender perspective into implementation of, for example, sustainable development goals, especially the goal number 7, which is clean and affordable energy which for now has no gender targets or gender indicators, and in general, to show how applying gender lens to knowledge on energy transition can help achieve equitable, fair, and just energy transition outcomes. The project just started 1 year ago, so we still have much to do, but the analysis of existing literature has been done so far, so we have also some results from this analysis. But if you are interested, we can return to this during the discussion. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward for your questions or comments.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paulina. That was incredibly enlightening, but also quite difficult to hear, also as a woman. I know that women are also actually more at risk of climate change. So it's not exactly the fairest world we live in, where women can't also make a difference in the energy transition due to inequalities that have already existed in our society for a while. You spoke a lot about many different aspects of gender inequality. And I mean, I have a few questions for you, and I'm sure others might as well. But I was wondering if I could probably start with one of my questions, and then if anyone on Zoom or anyone on the YouTube stream has any questions, YouTube, you can write them in the chat, and Zoom, you can just unmute and ask Paulina yourself. But before that, I guess, so in the beginning, you mentioned that Nordic countries are a bit more balanced in terms of their representation, and I guess in a way, in terms of substantive participation. And would you say that that is correlated to early education? And can you say that schools can help to promote this gender equality and substantive participation in politics and in democratic and political processes by encouraging this from an early age? And could you talk about any successful programs or policies that you know of?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a very complex question and answer. I'm not sure if I'm an expert in this, but yeah, we all probably know that one of the underlying factors of gender inequalities are gender stereotypes or gender biases. For example, the World Values Survey and Gender Social Norms Index, which is based on the results of this survey, reveals that still both men and women hold very fundamental biases against women along different dimensions. For example, they believe that men make better political leaders than women, or that men make better business executives than women do, or that a child or a family suffers when a woman starts or continues her career. So from this point of view, I do believe that education may be a powerful tool that can help break down or just challenge gender stereotypes that exist and create more inclusive environments, and through this empower women and girls to reach their full potentials. For example, gender responsive teaching and learning. So teaching that uses gender sensitive language and images. Teaching that does not reproduce gender stereotypes, both in the methods, textbooks, and curricula, might be a powerful tool. It has been found that portraying women only in traditional roles, only as caregivers, for example, can really undermine girls' aspirations for leadership positions or careers, which are traditionally dominated by men. And politics is one of these areas with traditional men domination. So it is also important to focus on teachers' pedagogical practices, which also is shaped by their assumptions and stereotypes about gender. So this makes me think that education is and should be a very, very powerful tool for changing the situation. I'm not an expert in Nordic countries. I'm not sure which aspects were most effective in the changing the situation in those countries, but I do believe that education is an important aspect. Also, what education can do is providing role models for both men and boys and women, girls in textbooks, as women teachers, invited guests, some mentors who can be included in the educational processes. So yeah, education is really important. But this is also, if we go beyond education, we also know from the political science literature that gender quotas work. If we are talking about political participation of women, these gender quotas should be obligatory and with some rules when non-compliance is taking place. But in the countries where they are well designed, political scientists show evidence that it helps to increase at least descriptive representation of women in politics.
Thank you so much. That definitely helps a lot, and it's good to hear that education can make a difference. Hopefully, more and more policies are introduced to include sort of that gendered education in early childhood. Fabian, actually, you had a question in the chat. You can, if you don't mind, you can unmute and ask Paulina directly.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for the interesting presentation of the data. I was wondering if beyond this binary construction of gender, are there any further information? Probably the numbers in total are too small, but I just, if there's some information about, let's say, trans people or whatever in regard to representation or inequality, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, this is very important, and we more and more look into this aspect. But as far as I'm concerned, and as far as I know, no public data include this this element, that the transgender people within their statistics. We start doing this within our organizational practice when we construct surveys. For example, within our university, we did a big survey on working conditions and gender equality, and we used a question when a person did not have to choose between only two options. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fabian. Is there anyone else on Zoom that has a question?
Yes, Vanina and Paulina, thank you very much for your presentation. And you spoke a lot about, in the end, also about that we don't have enough women in the area of green transition, so to say. And this is very often also revealed in the topic of digital transition, that we don't have enough women represented, or that there is a strong imbalance between women and men. And so if I understand it right, and maybe you can answer it, do you think it's necessary to include in education for democracy also this kind of gender sensitiveness as a first step to become more inclusive? Because education, primary education, is one of the first areas where we can have influence on a broader perspective in order to have inclusive career paths for women and men and also transgender people.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for this question. Yes, I'm sure that we should incorporate the theme of gender inequalities, both historical and current, into our discussion, because what I think it's happening now, at least in the Polish context, which I know best, we are trying to close our eyes and pretend that everything is okay and all are equal, and we are not even supposed to touch any difficult topics. And gender inequalities or ethnic inequalities, the status of minority groups are totally absent, at least in our education, which now more and more is challenged by those problems, with the influx of people, the refugees from Ukraine, for example. Yes, our school classes are becoming more and more diverse, and we cannot omit the topics of inequalities. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that that if we talk about this openly, when we talk also about both about gender equality and on healthy relationships, the education system can help to reduce the risk of gender-based violence. I wasn't speaking about this much because we don't have data, evidence on this, strong evidence, quantitative evidence, but more and more analysis show that this is a big barrier to both political participation of women, but also to the participation in other spheres of life. And violence within private sphere is also an issue.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And just another comment, I think this time is now also an opportunity to face that we should use all our competencies from each gender to affront the circumstances we are living now. And so it's good that we are aware of this topic again.
Yeah. Including men is one of the techniques or measures that should be incorporated. The work on gender equality should not be only the work of women, who are very often overwhelmed with these tasks. So we need allies, and men are there, and yeah, we should cooperate on these tasks.
I was going to mention that for centuries we had this kind of a story being told that women or certain groups, Black people or wherever, they are not capable of doing certain roles or being in politics. But then when you look at politicians, they are very white and men, and that are doing it so badly. We shouldn't be so scared. I mean, if you have views and if you have the strength to stand for a job, for a position, we all should actually be able to try and to do, because there is no rule that a woman could not do it well, or that trans should not do the job better than some people that already are in those positions. So I think it's a bit of a educational thing, and break all these traditional views that we had, especially in some of the traditional countries like Southern Europe. We are very traditional with women and men, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Some things are for men, some things are for women, and you cannot actually.
Right.
But some countries are trying to change that, and I've seen that Spain was in the positive side of ministries held by women. That was a policy that the current prime minister included, and I think it's working because it's good that young generations see that this is a possibility.
Right. Yes. Thank you for this comment. Yeah, it's very important. And again, education is a very important
Absolutely.
tool. Yeah. In fact, in Poland is one of the countries with still quite traditional attitudes toward gender roles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we have much to do.
Yeah, I think that the more you see in the world that things are changing, the easier would be for any other country to reflect and say, okay, maybe we don't need to continue doing it the way we've done it. But it takes a lot of time, and also there are women who don't feel they are up to the job. So we have to also work with young generation of girls and other groups of vulnerable groups to make sure that they understand that if they want, they can do it. Yes. So.
Yeah. Yes, but we also need to change the organizations themselves, because many programs, activities are directed towards girls or women, so towards the supply side. Yes, that women should feel more confident or gain some qualities that are important in politics, in energy sector, and so on and so forth. But we also know about gender discrimination within organizations, and I think school is not separate from these schools. Also the higher education institutions, and also the energy companies. So using these systemic tools like gender equality plans or diversity plans, also including these intersectional perspectives as far as it is possible, it's a very important area of intervention as well, alongside those mentoring programs and special designed curricula.
I was actually going, sorry, Carmen, I was actually going to ask how many of the policies that, if most of the policies now that address gender inequality, particularly in the EU, are more intersectional and include sort of, that different range of, race, ethnicity, especially with what we've been discussing about immigration. And how, I don't know, I'm guessing it's been adopted very differently, obviously, in Southern Europe versus Northern Europe, Eastern, Western, but yeah.
Yes, we are looking closer to intersectionality in one of the currently developing project, which is Inspire project. And the research shows that while intersectional perspective became a central concept in academic research, the application of intersectionality in public policies is very difficult and so far not very much efficient or effective. And it's mostly due to insufficient policy frameworks, also resistance, lack of data is a big challenge, and also underdeveloped practical guidelines. So in most cases, or in many cases, these policies focus on a single dimension of inequality, either on gender or migration status or age, or sometimes they provide a broader framework of, for example, diversity, but in both cases, they fail to recognize this intersection of multiple inequalities. So, for example, within Inspire project, one of the teams did a scoping review on research concerning gender equality policies in academic contexts, and they pointed to the almost total absence of an intersectional approach in those policies. And some efforts are visible as we stay within Europe and research organizations. European Union introduced a special financing scheme or stream that supports research organizations in implementing inclusive gender equality plans. And this inclusive gender equality plans means they incorporate this intersectional perspective. So hopefully we will have more and more practical examples of implementing intersectionality in research area, but also in other sectors. Yeah,
thank you.
For now, I cannot share with you any successful example of doing this.
Yeah, I guess that there needs to be more of a look into, that data in terms of intersectionality and also including trans people. I think generally in the EU, that seems to be somewhere where we need to go. And does anyone else have any questions? And I don't think we have any from YouTube because we're coming to about the closing time for the talk. So I just wanted to see, but Paulina, this was really great and a really interesting presentation. And we had a really good conversation, which I'm happy about. And to see any change, we need to keep talking and researching and being more inclusive in our day-to-day lives as well, especially when it comes to gender equality. So I wanted to just thank you and thank everyone here for asking some great questions and having a good conversation today. And for anyone viewing this, you can participate in, chatting or just writing next week in our democracy forum, which will address basically what we've discussed here. If you have any additional views on what we've just spoken about. But other than that, thanks again for a lovely conversation, everyone. And have a great rest of your week and a great summer as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you again for this opportunity. Thank you. And great
Bye-bye.
discussion. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.